The Pulse Point, a popular dance club in New Haven, vibrated in the sweltering July heat. Jayden sipped his club soda as he watched his five friends laugh and leer at each woman near him. He did not participate and locked his jaw. He adored his friend Micah, as they had been friends since fifth grade when Micah had fallen on the ground and Jayden had given him his last cool glow-in-the-dark Band-Aid. They had been inseparable since, even attending college together, rooming together, and later getting the first adult apartment together. But Jayden hated Micah's other friends. They were immature and inappropriate on the best of their days, and they were downright legally reprehensible on their worst. Right now, in the mildly dark, loud strobes of color causing mild seizured frenzy from the mass flow of bodies churning like a sea of flesh on the dance floor below them, Micah's Idiot Club, Jayden's hidden name for them, were pointing out each woman in the building and cruelly ranking them according to their clothing or worse, their body. Jayden couldn't do it anymore. When one of the Idiot Club, Brody, said that one specific woman on the dance floor looked like she was having the time of her life spinning to the music, there was because the local behavioral clinic was having a field trip. Jayden sucked in his breath. Micah looked back at him. A knowing expression crossed his blue-gray eyes. He shoved Brody and said that the comments about behavioral schools were off limits. The guys looked at Micah for a minute, then followed their gaze to Jayden. "Oh, yeah, sorry, man. Nothing against your girl," Brody said dismissively. His girl, Jayden's little sister, who was mentally challenged and one of the lights of Jayden's life. Brody said all of this dismissively. Brody turned back to his friends, but not before Jayden saw the eye roll from him. Brody's posse all shared a knowing look. Brody announced the need for more alcohol, leaving to find the bar. All of his friends followed, leaving Micah and Jayden alone. "You know, he doesn't mean," Micah started, but Jayden held up a hand. He had heard this excuse before. Micah wished that Jayden and the rest of his friends were closer, but these conversations were becoming more and more common. "I get it, Micah, and you understand why I don't enjoy this," Jayden said quietly, staring into his friend's eyes, unflinching and unwavering. Micah flinched and turned away. He knew. He just wished it were different. "Jay," using his childhood nickname for him, "can't you just try for once for me?" Micah's voice was pleading. Jayden turned his massive frame towards Micah. This was a conversation they had 1,000 times, and now was not the place for a repeat. He instead pretended to see a text on his phone and gave an apologetic shrug of his shoulders. Micah's eyes fell. He knew the pretense, and he just nodded sadly. Jayden made his polite but pointed goodbye and made his way downstairs to the main floor, where the thrum of music and bodies created an allure that was the most intoxicating of senses. Jayden was almost out the door when something pulled at him. He looked back to the dance floor, and there she was. She was simply perfection. Jayden had never seen anyone in all of his 26 years of someone so completely breathtakingly beautiful and completely alone. Her skin was like a rich honey and had absolutely no marks whatsoever that marred the beautiful skin. Her arms and legs were long and slender and rippled with muscle. It was not the muscle of a bodybuilder, but the muscle of a woman who knew how to use her body for more than simplistic things. She was wearing black leather pants that appeared to be painted onto her, and she was wearing a simple black half shirt that showed off her midsection with its rippling muscles. And strangely, she wore no shoes. Her hair was unbound and hanging in a long black curtain that would fly around her when she twirled on the floor. The music suddenly changed tempos, and she came to a complete and shocking sudden stop. It was as if the movement in her body had chose at one specific moment in time to completely stop. Even her hair stopped moving, falling straight. Jayden did not know what possessed him, but he walked right up to her. Her eyes. Jayden sucked in his breath as his eyes landed on her, tracking the movements like a predator. The color was green, but it was a green he had never seen outside of his garden. They were the color of fresh moss, early in the morning, covered with dew. As he stepped closer, he noticed they seemed to glow slightly with an inner light, and there was a silver ring around those breathtaking eyes. Jayden knew in an instant he was heading towards somebody that would alter the course of his life completely. But he continued to walk onto her until he stopped right in front of her. He was over 6 feet tall, and she was almost exactly his height. "You are beautiful," Jayden said simply. He did not try to flower the information with unnecessary plackets, just truth. Her stunning eyes seemed to widen slightly at the omission. "Thank you. Do you dance?" Her voice was husky, low, and held an accent that Jayden just couldn't place. He did not respond. He simply put his hand out to her, allowing her to choose how fast or how slow this would go. She arched a brow and placed a hand into his. The tempo changed again, as though she commanded the very strings of the music, a faster song that would lead them twirling and spinning throughout the entire dance floor. They moved like oil over water, fast, graceful, and completely absorbed in one another. They did not talk, but they did not look away from one another either. Jayden felt as though he had known her longer than that night, and when the music stopped, he was sweating profusely. But she had not broken even a single sweat gland. The music slowed, and he put his hand out again to offer for a slow song. She did not hesitate. She leaned into his touch. Jane noted she was cold, which was odd in this nightclub. She looked at him with those strange green silver-ringed eyes and spoke so low that only he could hear her. "I'm Reva, and you are a great dancer." "I'm better in private," Jayden said, starting to say without thinking, dancing around his kitchen with the German Shepherd Ursula as a partner, but it did not sound like that when he said it. It sounded like more of an invitation. Jayden immediately flushed red at what he said. Reva smiled gently and arched her brow again. She leaned closer to him. "Is that an invitation?" The question came out hoarse and seductive. Jayden lost all ability to speak. His mind formed thoughts that were highly inappropriate, and his blush deepened as though he could bring everything what he said in an eraser. Reva laughed. It was high, light, and freeing sound. Jayden decided then he wanted to hear it more. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to sound like that. Jayden rambled, but she kissed him. This kiss was not a simple, quick kiss. It was passion and heat, all wrapped into touch. She opened her mouth to him, and he did not argue or hesitate. Jayden claimed her mouth with his mouth, in one hand wrapping around her waist and the next grabbing her hair. A soft moan escaped her, causing Jayden to deepen the kiss. His tongue felt sharp teeth in her mouth, making a mental note to ask later. They parted and stood staring at each other, Jayden whispering to her his name, but only when he realized he had not introduced himself. He repeated her name as though it were a prayer. Then Jayden reached to her face and traced the line of her high cheekbone down to her lips and pushed a thumb gently across the lip where their kiss was still flush. Reva took his hand and led him off the dance floor. They were out into the darkness before he could even ask where they were going. A sleek black SUV pulled up and a man opened the door for her. Reva did not look at him, but even when he inclined his head to her, she pulled Jayden into the back of the car. With a slam of the door, the world went quiet. She was on top of him, kissing his neck and unbuttoning his shirt. Jayden held her hand still, kissing each finger carefully, marveling at how long and beautiful each hand truly was. He looked back up to her with reverence and wonder, while she looked at him in pure heat. Jayden was surprised. She wanted him. Not Micah with his perfect features and fraternity boy charm, not his idiot club, not any other man in this club, though she could have anyone. She was fumbling with his belt and reaching her hand inside his underwear. That is where he caught her hands. The action made everything in the car go utterly still. Her hands did not move. Her eyes became voids. The pupils were completely wide with almost no color visible. Jayden gently guided her hands out of his clothing, kissing them again. Revna stood straddling, shook her head in confusion. Revna, he began, cupping her hand again so he could clearly see her. I don't know what is happening, but what I do know is that I want you, and I want you more than I've ever wanted anything. He let loose a shudder. Revna curled her lips slightly, showing those oddly gleaming teeth once more. The desire crept back into her eyes. Then stop halting my hands. I can make you feel things that only are written about in smut novels, she said in a voice of pure silk. He felt her kiss his throat right above his pulse point, and one of her hands traveled down the front of his jeans where his obviously a large arousal was straining against the fabric. Maybe you need to see. She moved downwards on his lap so that her face was right in front of his zipper. Jayden realized her intention and moved quickly and brought her back to her previous sitting position. The movement caught her off guard as she quickly recovered. She kissed him again, causing him to lose control of time. He crushed her to him, tasting her mouth with a fever. He pushed her shoulders gently. I want you. God, woman. You are what I've been waiting for. But I will do this right, and not in the back of this, he said firmly, waving to the back of the back seat. Revna sat back so she was looking back at him fully. You would deny the pleasure of my body, Revna said bluntly, but not with meanness or cruelty. Jayden looked at her hands and smiled. No, I will have your body one day, but not today. Before I make love to you, I will have your mind and your trust first. Jayden said this to her with equal bluntness. Revna felt a coil of pleasure forming inside her. She realized that he had said that he would have her body, but he wanted more from her. She looked at this man now, really looking at him. He was a large man with a reddish complexion, brown hair, and the loveliest blue-gray eyes. They reminded her of a storm before the summer from her childhood. Revna closed her eyes. She could smell the male scent of him and how it washed over her, causing the coil to tighten. But she could also feel his desire for her, hard, ready, and pulsing against her core through her clothes. Revna groaned again and sat down into the seat next to him, half in the car seat, half still straddling him. Now what? He asked. But he did not let go of her hand and was looking at her with such amazement it made her breath catch. Do you feel it too? He asked it of her. She just agreed. It happened the moment they touched the floor. It was electricity that neither could pull away from. It was not merely the sexual raw heat, well, certainly in abundance between them, but it was something much, much more. Jayden said it aloud before she always knew for certain. They were fated mates. Now, she said lazily but intentionally, we need to have a discussion. Revna tapped her ear, which Jayden realized with a surprise she was wearing one the entire time. She spoke low and rapidly in another language. It was an old dialect of something else, something he could not quite place, but he knew he had heard it before. Her entire posture went rigid now, more formal. Even her eyes had returned to the large, pupilled black voidness of nothing from before. When she ended the phone call, she returned to her gaze to him. Her eyes could filled with that mossy green warmth. Her voice was that low, husky tone, but there was a cautionary tightness now. Jayden, she began, I'm taking you to my home. Not for sex, but you are right, we will own one another. But another way, but not in a way you will understand, but in a way that is meant to be. I need you to trust me. I will explain everything, but... She stopped. Her voice dropped again. What you are about to see, feel, hear, you will be in disbelief. Your brain will tell you it's not real. But what I'm going to tell you, it's very, very real. She trailed off as her vision tunneled now. Jayden had watched her intently. The strange woman spoke away from him to watch passing buildings as they sped along. And she continued, I am what your stories call a vampire. She turned back to him. Gone were the stunning green eyes, replaced by irises completely blown black, with a reddening fire surrounding the outermost edge. But it was not her eyes that transfixed him. It was her teeth. They were not teeth. They were long, 2-inch fangs that extended outwards from her canines. Jayden blinked and blinked again. He turned forward, then returned his gaze to her. It was still monstrous. For some reason, later not quite able to articulate to anyone hearing the story for the first time, he reached out and with his pointer finger and thumb examined one of her fangs. It was so completely unexpected and out of character for any other mortal to have done that Revna simply sat there shocked, stupid. She went utterly still as he examined them closely. He gave her a small smile and moved her head ever so slightly. Revna's eyes widened. Then she giggled. At the sound of her giggle, the car swerved. Her silent driver stared at her in the rearview mirror. Revna put up the partition. Jayden removed his hands from her mouth and said, Yes, I am terrified, but fear is information. What you do with it determines the outcome. Revna stared at him. She had never met anyone like him, and her lifespan was considerable. Jayden, there is something else, she started to say, but was interrupted by a silent alarm radiating from her cell phone. She touched her earpiece and a low, without any inflection or emotion, said, One word, speak. Jayden watched her face. With one flicker of emotional flash through her face, grief, pure, complete, and raw. He had known that emotion. He lived with it every day, ever since his little sister had passed. He grabbed her hand and held it. He did not try to engage with her other than holding her hand. He knew and understood that presence of being was what was needed. The rest of the trip for the nightclub to her home was short and quiet. Every now and then she would receive a text message from someone, and her fingers responded so quickly it blurred before his eyes. He had to actually close his eyes at one point because of the visual pain attempting to follow those fingers. They pulled up to an iron gate that did not wait for a click of a button. It simply opened then closed with no obvious influence. It registered on his weird scale, but after seeing a vampire, it was not as high as he thought it would be. The SUV pulled into the front door, and it was literal chaos. There were others all surrounding the door, the entrance, and some literally flying to the SUV as it rounded the corner. They were all beautiful, all races, sizes, color combinations, and every one was simply stunning to look at. Jayden looked at them with curiosity and realizing they were all beautiful, but they did not have her aura. She stepped from the vehicle, and every vampire in the area stopped and bowed. She turned to him and whispered only for his ears. I got you. She turned to the crowd. I am the High Queen Revna Ishkoda, keeper of the Night Court and the final authority in all vampire matters. This human, Jayden, is under my protection. She held a hand to him, allowing him now to make a choice. He took it and stood out. Your Highness, a tall man with ebony skin and eyes of dark red wine began to say as he rose, then stopped as he saw Jayden. This is Jayden. He is under my protection, and when everything happens to him... Revna did not finish, nor did she have to. Her voice plummeted and expanded at all at once. She was everywhere and nowhere. Every vampire subject cowered. Her power and authority was absolute. It was now Jayden's turn to raise an eyebrow. He saw it but he did see it when she hit a wink at him. He coughed to stifle a laugh. Revna moved like water, gliding through her home, taking his arm and leading him to a large library. Jayden let out a low whistle. It is my favorite room. Well, second favorite. Please, stay here, she said to them. Not an order, not a request. He nodded and walked around the room for a bit. He turned around what he felt was a second later, going to say something, but he was alone. It hadn't been even 15 seconds, and Revna didn't even make a sound when she left. Jayden walked around the table for a while. He looked at the top floor and was absently flipping through maps, some made in the early Middle Ages, when he heard somebody call his name. Mr. Jayden, came a crisp, clear voice. Jayden popped his head over the second floor railing to see a middle-aged man with graying hairs and kind eyes. Jayden studied him for a moment and smiled. You're human too. Another statement of fact, not a question. The mild smile grinned wider. Yup, and one of many who work for Her Highness. I am her steward. I'm like a butler of butlers. But normally I'm a thorn in the side of the Vampire Council. Name's Charles, but everyone calls me Chuck. He extended his hand. Jayden immediately liked him. They talked for the next few hours. A large woman with freckles on her dark skin and lively eyes came in with a tray laden with meats, cheeses, bottled water, and wine. Jayden learned the ancient treaty between humans and supernatural world was governed by Revna herself. Most humans who work for the vampires, even the blood servants, do so willingly and are heavily compensated and regarded as members of the court. Some servants actually come from bloodlines that have been intentionally intertwined with particular vampire households, or covens as they call it, serve them through their entire lives. That's me. I'm like, Chuck counted on his fingers, 20th generation? Isn't that like multi-generational slavery? Jayden asked, concerned. Chuck considered the question thoughtfully. My ancestors saved Revna. She was hurt, and they gave aid. Her Majesty rewarded our bloodline with the bonding. Any of us who wish to be in her service is given that choice, a good career, protection, and money. I love it here. I grew up here, as did my dad, my uncles, my grandparents, etc., etc. We do not have to stay. Many of us leave, and that's okay too. I even met my wife here. Our children have left, with only one that remained. Life moves on. Aren't we all food? Jayden whispered. Yeah, so? I think those field puppies are the cutest thing in the world. They're called cows, but they're also really damn yummy. Vampires have evolved as humans have evolved. There are blood banks, there are synthetic blood, and I even donate willingly. So does my wife. Vampires do not need to attack us. They continued to talk. After an hour, Revna walked through the door. Once more, no sound. She pulled Chuck aside, spoke in hushed tones. He nodded, waved at Jayden, and was gone. She collapsed onto the sofa and next to him. He noticed she had changed her clothes from the clubbing attire to a simple black tunic with black embroidery and long black pants. Though now she was wearing shoes, combat boots specifically, she appeared to be ready to go to war. Jayden sat and waited. You have a calming effect on me, Jayden. I know this, and even if you do not know yet, we are a bonded pair. Among the supernatural, it is an ancient, older, almost older than all magic, and it is absolute. You are my chosen mate, and I am yours. You can feel the pull of that bond, the hum of what it is when we are close, and the absolute certainty that we belong together. She said this simply and without effect. Jayden considered this. He nodded. He knew it was right, although she had said what was What she had said, there was no denying it. You have effect of me, of wonder upon me. He started and reached up and touched her face. The perfect cool skin sent a sensation of pure bliss down the bit of him. He could not explain why her touch drove him into madness or such sexual desire, but it was also this primal need to protect her. And he also wanted to hear that beautiful laugh once more. I love you, Revna, Iskoda, and I want you like I want to breathe. If we are mated bond, then we are mate bonded, he said matter-of-factly and kissed her again. Revna pulled back and looked carefully into his eyes. In order for this bond to be accurate, 100% real, and for you to be my king consort, and something the council cannot deny, I have to perform the bonding. Jayden stopped and studied her for a moment. What does that entail? We exchange blood. And her eyes became mischievous. I can have my wicked, wicked way with you, Mr. Jayden. And I will have that way. He felt that coil, that familiar pull, and he knew without a shadow of a doubt that she would have him. But he looked at her, and he brought his hands to cup her face. I hope you're ready. I am going to make love, so thorough love to you. She smiled and revealed her true teeth. Then, they did not gross him out, they fascinated him. He arched his neck up in offering. She made a slight slit across her own neck, and they bit each other. Her blood was warm, sweet, coppery, but it did not taste like blood. It tasted like memory. It tasted like loneliness, of grief. He realized as he tasted her blood, he could feel the snap, like a rubber band arcing inside his soul, connect to hers. They pulled apart and stared. He felt her then. Jayden. Her whisper in his mind. Revna. And he knew her name meant Raven. She was a Viking child, born to the Algonquin nation, and she still spoke Ojibwe. Yes, she said. And then his eyes held a simple question. She nodded and kissed him back, fully hard, fully completed. He felt her heat and her wetness as she moved in position on the nearby couch. It was crushing, this cardinal force of two souls consuming one another to give and gain pleasure. It was the owning, raw, complete, feral for both of them. He grabbed her in a massive bear hug and filled her with everything that he was, screaming her name on the top of his lungs as he arched with his own complex climax. They lay in a tangled mess and partially disrobed clothes, limbs screwed above and below. Revna lifted her head and looked at him. He was glowing and smiling at her. Mine, he said aloud, his eyes flashing with that red. Mine, she murmured, and mirrored. They fell into fitful sleeps. Neither of them saw it, but they felt it, the claiming marks on both of their necks. They were swirl, detailed artwork that pulsed with this beautiful green-blue light, thrumming in time with their finally resting hearts.